sound speeds. And if you use microphones, then you know that getting wind into a microphone gives a very undesirable effect. Everything from a pop to a whoosh sound, and you don't want to hear any of that. Now, if you're shooting outdoors, then you obviously know that there's going to be potential wind, gusts, even up to heavy wind that you need to protect your microphone against. But what about indoors? Well, in this video, we're going to be exploring that. If you do podcasting or any other kind of interior recording using dynamic microphones especially, then you know that one of the biggest complaints people have about them normally is the limited frequency pickup. If this is the human hearing frequency range that you can hear, and a condenser might be able to pick up that entire thing, then a dynamic might be able to pick up this much. And that is true because of the pressure-operated nature of dynamic microphones. But believe it or not, there are things you can do to open up the microphone, make it sound a little bit more natural, less muffled. And of course, this involves things other than VSTs, virtual studio technology, effects in post, and without making any kind of physical change to the microphone. Stay with me for a second. For this part of the video, I strongly recommend using headphones. And the reason why is because I'm going to be doing 4 different audio samples for you, and I'd like you to do detailed listening of them. So don't listen on your cell phone. Don't listen in your car while the air conditioner is running full blast. Don't do any of that. I want you to listen with headphones on or in a studio if you have a very good system there for listening. Something that you can really hear well on. And what I'm asking you to do is listen to these 4 samples and then put them in order as to which one is your favorite, followed by the second favorite, third, and fourth. There's 4 samples here. So without further delay, let's get into this comparison. This is microphone setup number 1, and I'm only about 4 or so inches off of the microphone. Tell me, how does this sound? Listen to all the little bitty things in my voice, and you tell me, is this your favorite microphone setup? This is microphone setup number 2. I'm still in the exact same position as I was before, but this time there is a difference. And I want you to tell me, is microphone setup number 2 your favorite? This is microphone setup number 3. Again, listen to every little bitty aspect of my voice and you tell me what you like about this setup or what you don't like about this setup in comparison to the other ones. This is microphone setup number 3. Is this one your favorite? This is microphone setup number 4. Which one is your favorite? I'd like you to write it in the comments below before we progress off of this setup. This is again number 4, but which one is your favorite? Number 1, 2, 3, or this one, 4. So which did you like the best? Second? Third? Least? Now let me show you what we were comparing. I brought out the SM7B from Shure. We listened to it with the windscreen on, so the stock configuration, and without the windscreen on, and with a Stedman XL Pro pop filter on it, and with the windscreen and pop filter on. But which order did I put them in? This is microphone setup number 1, setup number 2, setup number 3, setup number 4. Just so it's been said, I did absolutely 0 post-processing to those audio comparisons, with exception of leveling everything to -16 lust, because this is YouTube, and if you get it nice and loud like that, it's going to make a very good listening experience for the listener, or viewer in the case of YouTube. So what do you think? Because I'll tell you personally, I'm a big fan of using any and all microphones without the windscreen, which is one of the reasons why I did this in the Sound Speeds podcast. Very often I did use the SM7B without a windscreen, because even a little lightweight foamy like that does interfere with your ability to speak into this microphone. I don't want to say the way God intended or the way that an engineer is intended, but it is very much a different sound when you put a windscreen on the microphone and when you don't use it. The difference is between something like a foam windscreen and something like a pop filter is that the foam windscreen physically changes the way that the sound is taken into the microphone capsule. By muffling a little bit of the highs, you're not going to get a lot of that high-end presence, the sparkle, of the air that's in your voice. That goes away, and a dynamic doesn't normally have a whole lot of that to begin with. Now, the disadvantage of using a pop filter is this big honking thing in front of your face that you now have to deal with. And does it really change the sound a whole lot? Well, that's for you to decide, but I'll tell you this. If it comes down to me using a microphone like this or me using a microphone like this, I will take this all day long, because there is a way that you can talk into the microphone and not have it pop the thing and kill it with plosives. And I have a video all about that. I use the Shure SM7B in this video for a few different reasons, and the first is recognition. Everyone, after all, has seen someone on YouTube using the SM7B, and if not, you're probably new to YouTube. And yes, I did run it in flat mode in case you're curious. The second is because the windscreen is very easy to take off. Now, granted, that wasn't on all the way, but if you want to remove it and change out the windscreen to get one of those pretty Tom Buck ones, or put on the big fat foam windscreen that comes with the SM7B if you get certain setups, you obviously can. But most of the time, people don't even think about the fact that you can remove the windscreen and might even think that you're supposed to put the big one on top of it. But if you want to have this on camera, people might look at that and say, what in the world? Why are you using the microphone that way? Did you lose the windscreen? Did it fall apart? Whatever. The thing is, though, it does to me sound more open, and I would much prefer to use it this way than this way. And as for a pop filter, well, if you want to have this thing in front of your face, you absolutely can. It's not going to be any skin off my nose. But here's one other thing I'm going to say. If you do not use the windscreen at all, and you are very, very active and mobile and talking with your hands, all that wind is going to be hitting the microphone capsule. So you got to be very, very aware of that, because it's not just about hitting with plosives from your mouth. But I do want to point out one thing on the topic of plosives from your mouth. If you were to hold your hand straight out in front of your mouth and you start talking, you're going to feel the wind when it starts to dissipate and not hit your hand nearly as strong. So if you naturally speak as loud as I am and you put your hand directly in front of your mouth and you start talking, at some point your breath is not going to be hitting your hand. You're not going to feel it on your hand anymore. Also, if you go square to the camera right now like I am, if you start to take your hand around to the side, you're going to notice that at some point the breath from your mouth is going to go right past your hand. That's going to be your sweet spot. You might want to go a little bit farther out, but if you don't have any particular choice or preference as to which windscreen to use and are not against, completely taking it off, keep that little trick in mind. What about a condenser microphone? Well, the same rules do apply, but most condenser microphones do not have integrated in any sort of foam to the windscreen. Most of the time, it's more metal-based, like a grill, or perhaps a pop filter like this. Now, that's not going to help it completely. You still have to have proper technique to it. But with a dynamic microphone, on the other hand, there is usually somewhere foam integrated into the design of the microphone. For example, if you took this off of the outside, remember, it's actually part of the design, the way the microphone looks. People are like, well, I kind of know what's in there. If you took the foam out of the grill of something like a Shure, to stay in the family, SM58 or a Beta 58A or something to that nature, then it will remove that foam. It will lighten up a little bit, but you also might be able to see through the grill a little bit more, and people sing right up on it, which a lot of the times people do, that with a dynamic, they get right up on it. Then you might need it for simply the spit for the wind directly going into that microphone, because if you want to do this number and put your lips all on the microphone, you're going to need it. Here's one last note that you might not have considered before. What is the pressure like in the air? I'm not suggesting you record with a ceiling fan or a box fan on. No, I suggest killing all those if you're going to do any kind of audio recording. But what about the pressure in the air? If you move your hand around like this, does it feel like your hand is pushing a lot of air out of the way? Can you even hear like a borderline whoosh noise in your environment? Sometimes it feels like there's not much pressure in the air at all. Sometimes it feels like it's almost pressuring you, pressurizing in the room. That is going to affect your microphone as well. A slight little bitty head turn and your breath just catching the edge of that capsule could be enough to cause a plosive in one room, but not in another. So it depends on the pressure in the room too. So hopefully this is giving you some stuff to consider regarding your pop filters and windscreen usage on your microphones. But definitely consider them if you want to get a more open sound out of your microphone, and don't be afraid to do some comparisons on your own in your own environment and setup. Thanks for tuning into this episode of Soundspeeds, and be sure to tune in the future for more interesting sound things that you might not have considered or tested, and of course, sound advice. Have a question you'd like answered or want to add something? Be sure to write it in the comment section down below. You can also make a suggestion for future topics of discussion. Again, comment section down below, or you can email me at soundspeeds@yahoo.com. Be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you won't miss out on future sound advice.